Very much, Miranda. And as we continue the conversation, we're going to take a look at what is transpiring at the Thomas and Mack Center. The inside of it there, well, there's our old pal Wayne Allen Root, who joins us from time to time as those in attendance at tonight's debate at UNLV come in, do some socializing, and prepare to take their seats shortly. Now, let's continue the conversation by welcoming in another analyst to our panel. Skyping in from the West Coast, talk show host and GOP strategist Andrea Kaye. Also rejoining us from Southern California, political commentator Michael Reagan. As always, find and follow Michael on Twitter. His handle at Reagan World. So there you both sit way out west, and the debate is out in your time zone tonight, but it's action even further away from the West Coast that will merit a lot of attention. Foreign policy, one of the topics named for tonight's third and final debate, and we expect that both candidates will offer their policies. But as you see the pictures of the candidates and their entourage arriving, Mr. Trump, we just missed him a second ago as he made it into the arena. I tell you what, Andrea, let's start with you. What do you think Donald Trump will have to do to establish his bona fides tonight in foreign policy, or is it enough simply to attack Mrs. Clinton's stewardship as Secretary of State?
Well, I think he needs to do both things, actually, which is kind of what he started to have a chance to do in the second debate after we finally got past the first 20 minutes, which was nothing but an inquisition of him and who he is as a person. I think he needs to expect to be completely under attack as a person. He needs to address that quickly and move on. He needs to do what he did in the second debate in terms of prosecuting her in terms of why she should not be behind the desk in the Oval Office, but why she should be behind bars. And that includes things that she did, her actions as Secretary of State, which violated the Espionage Act, left us vulnerable to hostile enemies and hostile governments, including the Clinton Foundation. I think he needs to take that to the people. Then he needs to talk about what he will do in terms of foreign policy and what he's going to do to keep America safe.
Now, I think, really, in all honesty, if he can't win the foreign policy 15-minute part of this debate, then Donald Trump has no chance to go anywhere, because that should be something he should be able to hit absolutely out of the park. Bringing up this whole thing about what's going on in the sexual thing the last few weeks, I think at that point he just says, listen, I already apologized for that. My wife accepted my apology. My family accepted my apology. I hope America did, and then answer another question. He doesn't need to think that he needs to spend 30 minutes, in fact, defending himself on that issue. He did that for 20 minutes in the last debate, and all Hillary wanted to do was solidify the female vote, and she did that in the first 20 minutes of the last debate. He can't go there. Say he apologized and go on to something else.
Michael, as you were offering your remarks, we again took a look inside the Thomas and Mack centers as the Trump entourage was coming in. And you know, it's very interesting. Donald Trump can attract comment from anywhere, including a president who, by all standards, is a lame duck. For example, the other day, Italian Prime Minister Renzi holding a joint press conference with our own President Obama, and yet our commander-in-chief, who promised the press he wasn't going to touch domestic politics, starts going after Mr. Trump, and again the subject is Vladimir Putin and the Russians.
Mr. Trump's continued flattery of Mr. Putin and the degree to which he appears to model many of his policies and approaches to politics on Mr. Putin is unprecedented in American politics.
You know, Michael, Lyndon Johnson criticized Richard Nixon, called him a, quote, chronic campaigner. Is that what we're seeing from Barack Obama? He just cannot stick to his own knitting as president, and he's got to get into this fray?
Yeah, he loves hearing himself, and if he can help Hillary Clinton become the third term of Barack Obama, in fact, so be it. So he chooses his moments, says what he wants to say, and gets on with it, and he gets the coverage. Like right now, he gets the coverage in the media. I don't know why people would be surprised he would do this. He's not running for re-election again but Hillary is running for his third term, and he'll do everything he can to move the progressive issues forward. And if they win, then bar the door Sally.
Well, Andrea, there is something else that happens tonight in the crowd that is assembling at the Thomas and Mack Center. Donald Trump invited Pat Smith, a mother who lost her son in that 2012 Benghazi attack, to be there for the final debate. And of course, having Mrs. Smith there, it's going to be very tough for the alphabet networks and their cable cousins to avoid mentioning her. Is that like a bonus talking point? Certainly, Mr. Trump needs to bring up Benghazi during his presentation tonight, but the fact that she is there, does that help prime the pump to reinforce the failure and the terrible cost at Benghazi, Andrea?
Yeah, in fact, I'm kind of a little disappointed that he didn't do kind of what he did with the second debate, where he kind of punked the reporters and he had the Bill Clinton's accusers and he had Kathy Shelton there in a pre-debate press conference. I'm kind of disappointed he didn't do the same thing with not only Pat Smith, who I had an incredible honor of interviewing on my show, and it's impossible to speak to her if you have any empathy for human beings and for women and children like Hillary pretends to. It's impossible to speak with her and not have your heart ripped out of your chest because of what was done to her child and what was done to her and the families and the lies that were then propagated against the American people afterwards. I wish he had had a press conference with Teague and Tonto and her and everybody prior to the debate, because how can we...
Go ahead, Michael.
If I could jump in here,
Please.
where he blows it up is he invites Sarah Palin and he invites the brother of Barack Obama. So instead of the eyes of the alphabet soup media being solely on the on the face of this gold star mother where they should be, they're going to be talking about Sarah Palin. They're going to be talking about the brother of Barack Obama. He should have just had Pat Smith there and left it alone. I think it was a terrible mistake to invite Sarah Palin and invite the brother of Barack Obama. There's no need to have him there at all. He already has the base covered, and he should have just stayed with Pat Smith.
Well, but let me ask Andrea about this. You know, you take a look at some of the polling, and Mr. Trump is closing in on 20% African-American support. Doesn't having Mr. Obama's brother there help reinforce that? Let's let Andrea answer that, Michael. You've had your turn. What about it, Andrea?
Well, I actually kind of like the move. I agree with Michael in the sense that I don't think Sarah Palin really brings anything. I think he's trying to shore up the women and the female and female conservative vote. But I think that she's more of a hindrance than she is a help. But I actually do think it was a good move. When you have the brother, an African-American brother of the first African-American president of the United States on your side, I absolutely would trot him out to the front row, and I would try to force the alphabets to have to discuss the fact that he was there. I would.
Well, of course, the alphabets, they've made soup of everything, but one thing's always great. We can have an invigorating conversation. Our friends on the West Coast, Michael Reagan, again, follow him on Twitter at Reagan World, and talk show host and GOP strategist Andrea Kaye. We thank you very, very much, and we'll see what happens next. Speaking of next, political consultant Roger Stone weighs in with his thoughts on what needs to happen tonight. All that and more as we continue here on Newsmax Prime.